Good evening, everyone. Happy spring. Equinox drove to the meeting in the daylight, which was really nice. This is the March 19th meeting of the Jericho Planning Commission. Thank you for joining us. Just going to briefly go over the agenda. So we will have some time for public comment. Then we have some time to get to know Peter Booth, our newest select board member, a little bit more. And we'll approve our minutes. And then since it's post-town meeting and our first meeting after town meeting, Planning Commission will take some time to organize in terms of looking at our rules of procedure, electing a chair and electing a clerk. And we will confirm our roles as liaisons to other town committees working on integration of goals and work plans. Then we'll have a discussion and hear and share observations all about the town meeting, which I unfortunately missed. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Linda has some updates for us, and then sharing some other updates around the table, any other business, and then planning for our next meetings, which actually will be an important topic. So I want to make sure that we have time for that at the end of this meeting. Does anybody need to suggest any changes to the agenda? Okay, good to go. So our next item is public comment. Would anybody like to share comments with the Planning Commission? Chuck, would you please come forward? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Chuck with the Jericho Center, 25 miles an hour. I watched your last meeting very carefully, and I really felt a lot of the conversation was about aesthetics. And I think the problem is we need to figure out how to make it less expensive to build. I don't buy the argument that all builders need to know is what the rules are. Builders need to know the rules so they can decide whether they can afford to go ahead. You can load it up with rules and make it possible, for someone to go ahead. And if the objective is to contain people with modest incomes in a small area, you can't also burden the housing in that area with really crazy rules. The rules in Jericho Center aren't anywhere near as bad as they are in Riverside, but the rules added about 30% of the cost of the house I built for my mother. And there's things we can do in terms of frontage and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's where the energy needs to be. It's not on, restricting the size of a front window, telling people what their doors need to be made of, restricting the use of plastic flowers, telling people, restricting where play equipment goes. Jericho needs to get over its fear of what people with modest incomes might want to build for themselves. There's no rules on houses that are built in a 10-acre zone. We trust people with money. You build a house of any size, of any shape, of any window, characterization, any roof line, any of that stuff. But when it comes to where we want people with modest incomes to live, we burden them with really, unfair rules. So I hope that you back off on the aesthetics, trust people, design the houses that work for them, and focus on reducing the frontage that's required, making it possible for people to build two houses on one lot. All the things, there's so many rules that make infill housing more difficult. And I would focus on that rather than telling people what their houses need to look like. If a neighborhood wants to control the lives and housing for people in their area, they can form an HOA. And if you think a village center is reluctant to form an HOA to regulate window size, then you're imposing something that people don't want. So please back off the aesthetics. trust people to build the houses that work for them. If you can apply any aesthetic restrictions anywhere, they should apply to every house in town. If you're gonna tell people that their front window can be a maximum of 20 square feet, that should apply to every house in Jericho. That's the only way to control this, is for people with the money to live in a 10-acre zone, based with the same regulations. I don't think people in the 10-acre zone would ever put up with a prohibition on plastic flowers. No.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Do you have any members of the public on the Zoom? No, okay. All right, so then our next topic is to talk with Peter Booth. We come forward. Should say congratulations
Thank you very much.
on winning the election.
Thank you very much. It has been a fire hose of emails and things to do in the last, whatever it's been, 11 days. And one of the things I've been doing is going around and trying to hit for essentially every committee in town and just sort of introduce myself, but also just get the pulse of what you're working on, which I sort of know a lot of for you folks. And then I also spent a few hours here in the building in town hall, talking to all the staff. And I talked with Linda just yesterday, I think. Yeah. Just yesterday. So I just kind of coming to say, hey, I'm here now, and what are you all working on, and what are you looking for from the select board, and then what is sort of your conduit of information back and forth with the select board? How has that been working, and has that been working well? So that's all I got for you.
Okay. We should add, I know this was in your bio, so a lot of people probably saw it, but you were on the planning commission.
Yes, yeah,
For Jericho.
yep, yep.
And do you remember what was the main project or projects? Like, how long were you on the planning commission?
I did 2 sessions. It was
Mhm.
Don Foote, myself, and Sam Dunn, I think.
Mhm,
The big thing was we spent a lot of time talking about ADUs,
mhm,
and the Riverside project was a huge piece of what we did. Spent a
mhm.
lot of time on. Now I'm questioning. No, I think, no, we did. No, we did for sure. Phil Newbeck went as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
What years were those?
You look at my flyer? I don't know. I would guess 2012-ish.
So do you have an opinion or a thought on the fact that we're currently still rehashing those same issues?
You mean the Riverside form-based code stuff? Yeah,
And ADUs and affordable housing and all of it. I mean,
Right.
the
we
latest,
weren't really interested in affordable housing then.
well, but I think that's an underlying premise of ADUs.
Yes,
So,
but to be perfectly honest, the conversation then was less about affordable housing. This is my memory, it's on the record, this is my memory, I'm not speaking for the full planning commission. And really more about providing housing for like in-law apartment kind of thing. And which I guess is affordable housing. I mean, smaller housing. But it wasn't the sort of the source of it then wasn't like, oh my God, look around, all we have is these humongous houses. This is the problem. And in terms of where, and I've been trying to think, I watched your last, I think it was your last meeting. And I think it was Susan, someone, you guys were sort of, I don't think the wrong way, sort of tearing apart the Riverside Code, like, this is a disaster, who did this, how could they possibly run there, so this and that, and I was like, God damn it, what? And then I think it was Susan who said, well, I think that a lot of that came out of a position from a place of fear. And it wasn't a fear, in my opinion, of poor people, it was a fear of like Walmart and Hannaford and that kind of stuff. And Dollar General had just gone in and people were not happy about that, myself included, weren't happy about that. It turns out that didn't destroy our town the way I thought it might.
yeah,
What's that?
yet.
Right. So that's where I think a lot of that came from and what what we felt people wanted was small, multi-use, multi-purpose, development in that area, like a little neighborhood in that area. But even then, people weren't comfortable. I remember Phil Newbeck saying, that she was not comfortable telling people they can't have plastic flower. And she said, whatever, the level of minutia that would be. My memory is about like the ratio of windows, thinking like, wow, that's kind of weird. The ratio of the base to the height of the window, I think was one of the things in the code. And the pitch was from the people who did it, from the people who brought it to the board, to the commission, was developers love this because you tell them like, here's the package, just open this up and read it, and that tells you exactly what to build. So it's super easy to build, and things get pushed right through because it's black and white, and it's very, very direct and straightforward and simple. Not simple, but it's black and white. So it makes development really easy. That was sort of the pitch that we were given. The vacant lot would be otherwise.
Yeah, because it almost starts at the 1-inch level, but what that lot really calls for is something at the 10,000 foot level. And
Yes,
so the owner and their engineers have had to kind of like piece that together and hope that they're achieving something that would be acceptable to the town.
yes.
It was never really like a master plan. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
right. It was like,
it was,
how big is the mouse? How big is this microphone gonna be?
Right.
And not like, how are we gonna think about the
Right.
size of the room and
How
how
we
the voice
run
is
our
carried.
meetings.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm mostly, I mean, I'm welcome to listen to anything you guys want to tell me about what you're doing. I do want to talk about wastewater and just sort of what all of you are thinking about in terms of wastewater and the cost of it and the benefits of it. Sort of what your collective pitch is to the select board, or will be, or has been, or whatever the proper verb is.
I'll speak. We need it. It's essential. We're not growing any further without it. We won't get affordable housing without it. Jericho will stay exactly as it is without wastewater treatment. It's blocking us from doing anything. It should be priority number one.
Is that an overstate? Block not doing anything?
Where we're going to put development right now?
What, or
In this
we're-
town center, where's it going to go?
Right, or we're just amplifying big houses on larger lots. We're amplifying the elitism.
The state has suggested, and we have agreed with the concept of concentrating development in village centers. So in the town of Jericho, that is extremely limited by not having municipal wastewater, extremely limited. And so Chuck's complaint about the last 50 years of Jericho planning is that there's been this talk about developing the village centers, and it's not happened because it can't happen. And so Chuck and I disagree. I think the concept is still valid, but
Of a village center.
of developing in the village center, but it's only valid if you have municipal services. And so if the town wants to move in a new direction for development and wants to have a different variety of housing available, as the new town plan states, we need to have municipal services,
Right.
wastewater and water.
And
So-
long-term, in 50 years, it's not sustainable. This whole area will collapse without municipal wastewater. Lafayette, Sunnyview, everybody will end up with those little 40-foot by 10-foot, $40,000 above grade compact wastewater treatments in their yard.
Because their systems are gonna fail.
Because their systems are going to time out in those neighborhoods, and they don't have the space in those lots to replace with anything but that alternative above grade system. And a lot of people,
Lost as customers forever.
and also a lot of people can't actually afford that. That's a very expensive replacement system for an individual homeowner whose value of their home is $450,000 or less.
And when we think about the other part that we hear over and over in Jericho, no sprawl. Keep
Right.
things tight.
Right?
You don't have wastewater, we're gonna get sprawl.
So I think we've been really patient over the past, feels like
6,
forever,
7 years. 8 years.
waiting, this group, waiting for the wastewater.
Planning commission.
Yep, waiting for the wastewater study to be completed so that we can understand what the options are. And then I think you'll hear a really loud, really united push to take advantage of every opportunity available to follow any viable plan that wastewater study presents for us.
I would just amplify, this is more my opinion than that of the entire planning commission, but the select board as the town leaders should, as of today, be telling the town, this is going to happen. We need your support. We're going to have to bond for it. It's going to be expensive. It has to be done. And the leadership has got to come from the select board. We can sit here and scream about it all we want. You guys are the ones who control the budget. You guys are the ones who have to commit and condition the town to say this is going to happen.
And it's a big push because in my personal opinion, not speaking for the group, but the town of Jericho has been in a 30, 50, 75-year period of status quo. Like, isn't it good what we have? Let's just enjoy, let's rest on our laurels and enjoy what we have. And we're getting to this point. We've long since gotten to this point, but we're at a point where that's not going to work going forward if we really want these changes that we have heard collectively people want, like affordable housing. And so for better or worse, the select board is the lead, voice in this community. And it's incumbent on them to take the lead on this. And I think that they have not done that.
Or there really does not seem to be any sense of urgency. And I think, it shows here on a day-to-day basis that we can't fill really necessary essential service positions with highway department and in the schools and the post office, because the people who live on those salaries cannot afford to live here.
Yeah.
Or anywhere close by. So we're not just hearing that we need affordable housing, and trying to be sympathetic to that need and be nice. That's not what the conversation is about. The conversation is about, like Chris said, if we want to maintain this standard of living and this type of community where we have these services and we all live together, we need to have a place for every income range to live, or we won't have those services.
Sort of, people always fear change. And if you look at older town plans, there are sentences in there that say, be careful about infrastructure, because infrastructure will lead to growth and might be, more growth than anybody wants. So that's kind of like the fear that was from before. But then you have fear of change, and people are like, well, we don't want Jericho to change. There's a certain contingent that feels that way. But when we were going through the town plan, we looked at a lot of data, and the data actually shows that Jericho has changed, and Jericho has gotten much more expensive, and Jericho has gotten much more demographically less diverse. And so it's almost like the opposite. It's like schizophrenic. It's like, well, we don't want to change. And it's like, well, open your eyes. We actually have changed. And unless we
deliberate, not intentionally.
And also, right. And unless we are more intentional about directing and influencing and sort of massaging the future, it's just gonna continue to spiral and become more homogeneous, more expensive, more sprawl, more difficult.
I think
If
there's
I
also,
can maybe just temper that I think it's important to differentiate when we talk about being the same. We're income undifferentiated. It's not there is no income diversity in this town. Forget the rest of it. Most people in this town are in the upper 25% or higher of the population on income earners. That's not
Especially
diverse,
newer.
especially the newer ones.
Right, especially the newer buyers. So, I mean, that's a conversation we've had also with the Affordable Housing Committee to be really clear. We're not saying only affordable housing. We're not saying no more,
Nothing up, right?
nothing else. We're saying yes and.
Yep.
And that we need to focus on and facilitate and enable affordable housing through infrastructure. We're not saying stop building everything else. That's not.
But we also, so I think we're all feeling pretty united in it, in how we see things, but that's because, you know, we just listened to the community for 18 months through meetings and surveys. We looked at other towns. We did really have come to this as a reflection, a lot of what we've heard.
Mhm.
We've also heard a lot of concerns about the natural environment, about climate change, about transportation options and emissions, and that's the state's strategy of promoting concentrated development is so you can also protect the resources that are the most valuable. So like Sabina is on the Conservation Commission, Eric is on the Affordable Housing Committee, Wendy's on DEI. So we have these like touch points with these other groups and are trying to link up our work with a counterpart. So like as we work on zoning and enabling intensity and less regulation and more flexibility, we're also working in parallel with like a better bike ped infrastructure. I mean, I'm saying like we're doing it
Right.
perfectly. We're not. That's the goal.
That's what you work.
Right, is that we would also have a better transportation network, and we would also have actually stronger protections for natural resources so that, you know, big houses can't obliterate a key habitat.
Mhm.
I also think it's important to acknowledge that, again, in my opinion, there's a fear about spending and a fear about debt. And I think that has driven implicitly, if not explicitly, a lot of the town strategies over the last 40 years or so. And I think that it's imperative that we collectively overcome this if we're going to move forward. And I think that needs to come from the select board. And I think the select board has been in the past, speaking for myself only, very averse to that concept. And I think it's really limiting. And I think that it's possible that the town would really benefit from a consultant who has expertise in finance and community development financing in particular, to guide us and teach the town how to do this in a way that educates people, which would allow people to overcome their fear, which I think is based in part on just ignorance of not knowing.
When you say people, you mean the select board.
Also the
I mean,
general.
the
public.
general public.
The town as a whole,
Yes.
but because the town as a whole will need to come to support this for sure. But I think that, you know, the select board as the most important subset of the town, yes. But I think a lot of the fear is based on ignorance. And I think
How so? When you,
Like as a simple example, some of us attended a training about capital budgeting. And one of the like big aha moments from that training was that an entity like a town should determine its debt capacity, kind of like you do in your own household budget. You know, this is my income, this is the mortgage I can afford, these are the schools I can afford to pay for my kids. The town has a debt capacity, which is like a knowable number based on best practices, based on the grand list and so forth. And instead of the policy being, we want to minimize debt and have no debt and yay, the bond is paid off, that's totally wrong. what they were saying is that you want to have a
Constant.
steady and even increasing as your grand list is increasing debt, so that the burden of the investments is shared across multiple generations. And you're not deferring maintenance. You wouldn't wind up with this big, sudden
Town garage.
expense of the town garage. You'd be like, oh, well, that's the $4 million project that we're doing in this 5-year period. And then the next $4 million project is going to be this. And so in terms of, not ignorance, it's exactly, but a lack of information, is that our understanding is that wastewater is expensive on paper, but that there's a lot of money available, and we have yet to be able to do the math on how much money Jericho taxpayers might need to pony up. And it might be as little as 0. And so instead of being like, oh my God, wastewater is going to be so expensive, we need to do the due diligence and say, like, is it really? And it's a big, expensive investment, but it doesn't necessarily come out of our pockets. And then, of course, you get people who say, like, well, it's all our money,
right.
it's all taxes anyway. But the responsible thing is not to, not accumulate money for your leaking roof. It's not been, or speaking for myself, think that it's more responsible to invest in strategic growth for the town than it is to just sort of say, oh my God, I hope we don't really have to spend any money.
Right. We've been living like paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
We haven't picked our heads up and thought like, oh, in the spring, I'm gonna need snow tires. Like, we just haven't done any, like my roof is 10 years old and it's a 20-year roof, and I better have that money in 10 more years to put that roof on. I feel like that we just aren't, picking our heads up and making a long-term, like 30-year financial capital budget for the town. And again, that says, based on the grand list, how much debt should we be carrying that's healthy?
And there's towns that are similar in size. that
Let's
Jericho-
hear
That's what
Wendy.
Heidi's
Oh,
trying
We
to
haven't
say.
heard from Wendy
We
yet.
haven't heard from
Yeah.
Wendy yet.
Yeah.
Wendy, then Heidi.
There's towns that provide great models for what Will has just been describing, like we had the town manager, Dominican St. Cloud, was that? Dominic St. Cloud, come in from St. Albans, and he just was providing it's just a roadmap of how to have responsible economic growth in a town. And like, I was not even thinking of St. Albans as a comparable town, but population wise, it really is to Jericho. It's not that much bigger than Jericho.
But they're much, not population wise, but
Yeah, I mean, they have
Only
a
because
sense-
they've invested
Yeah,
in creating a
yeah.
downtown. They have some larger employers. That's the big
Mhm.
difference. Heidi.
Yeah, thanks so much. I just was gonna sort of go on that same track also, just one of the things we have a responsibility for is planning for the future. And if you look at the demographic trends of Vermont, and particularly about we are the fastest aging state. And there's a lot that we need to do to make sure that we can shore up folks who are currently living here, being able to live here, but also being able to bring in new folks. Because the whole question of what is going to keep our town alive is younger people, is replenishing folks as we age. And the current lack of affordability of infrastructure does not set us up well for a future populated by families in a way that we would want to see our community move over time. And so I do think that my colleagues here in the Planning Commission have talked about, some of the shifts are about thinking forward instead of thinking back. And I think the previous town plan was really based on a set of values of thinking back and or fear. And this one's really based on looking forward. And I think one of the key things we need to be super clear about is the demographic trends and how do we remain a vibrant community, and that requires future planning and future investment. So you've said it, but I just wanted to call that one piece.
Thank you.
Sabina, we haven't heard from you yet. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure. Anything to add? Okay.
What has the,
Wastewater.
what has, and what is the current select board, the, whatever, Eric and Catherine? What have your interactions with them been like, or what has their response been? Catherine was sitting right here and I wasn't here, what would she be saying, Paul, or Eric? And if you don't want to, you feel like it's not your place to speculate, that's fine.
Well,
I'm just curious, because I'm gonna be bringing these things to them and talking to them, and I'm just wondering sort of what they're.
Without naming individuals, I can recall in recent select board meetings, people specifically saying, oh my God, that would cost money, words to that effect. And again, I think it's a sort of a fear-based approach more than a reality-based approach. And it just fundamentally, the new town plan is not going to happen unless that mindset changes. It just isn't. And then anyway, so
And what's the path to changing that mindset?
I think it's, well, with regard to the money piece of it, I think it's education. Really, because I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem to me that knowledge base exists in town right now. And so if it doesn't exist, that should not be the rate limiting factor. We should get somebody to come in who has it and who can lead us forward. So I think that's a big piece of it. I'm also, we also are in general concerned about the town's managerial capacity, the ability of a 3-person select board to take on all of the projects that are on our list or on the town's list. And so I think that's a real concern.
The select board can't actually do anything about that. That has to come from the people. But the
Yes,
select board could
the
voice.
select board could
voice,
encourage it
right.
and suggest that would be a really good idea if in fact they felt that way.
And I feel that way. By whatever, it's been 11 days, like 1,000 times over. I feel like why
I can
are three of us doing this and we can't talk to each other?
I mean, I can guarantee you that
Right.
we would not be as effective if there were 3 of us instead of 7.
So anyway,
Right.
so I have been very clear to both Eric and Catherine that I think it needs to be a 5-person board, and I don't want to speak for them or characterize their responses, but yeah, but I'm already like really I've had one meeting. I've already sort of brought that up and said, hey, we need to get ahead of this because this is not working.
Failing that, since that does require a different group, getting a town manager who can offload a lot of that work from the 3-person board into a much larger administrative state, if you want. But if there's a real deep resistance to go into 5 people, at least build the infrastructure so when 5 people come in
It
play.
feels the other way to me. It feels like I'm not sure what difference a town manager would be compared to a town administrator. For this town right now, tomorrow morning or whatever. And it would cost money. 5 people on the select board costs nothing. So that, I
Well-
feel like that's,
I think the town manager is able to delegate. It would involve having a larger administrative entity in the town. Instead of we've got 4 people in the town, full-time employees here, not counting the highway department and all that. Is that about what it is, Linda?
There's that many full-time.
Not even that many.
Well, there's John, there's me,
John.
Amy's not full-time, even Paula's not full-time. I think it's Amy, me, Paula, myself, and Jessica.
Yeah. So
No, John?
being able to increase, you did,
You did, yeah,
Okay, so that is 4.
to 4.
yeah.
For all the things that we're talking about, wastewater, the town garage, updating the sidewalk path that's coming through here, updating the town plans and putting things in place, allowing growth, getting grants. That's not enough.
I
Right,
think,
because more of those, that work is gonna require project management.
right. And I think we also feel that if you had a long-term capital plan that included things like a new plow truck and other improvements, that the town manager could just administer the plan and not have to come to a select board every time and ask for a dump truck. Right? Like if that's part of the plan, then really that town manager should only come when there's an exception to the plan. When something happens before it's planned, or you have more time and you say, great, we can throw this money back in because we didn't need it when we thought we would. That's really what a town manager is doing. It's executing on the town plan and the long-term capital plan. They're not waiting on 3 people to process all that information and revisit after their day job for 10 hours. Wait, when were we supposed to do a dump truck?
Mhm.
Like, come on, those people can't live in the details that way. And a town manager absolutely can. And if they have those tools of a town plan and a long-term capital plan, they are enabled, empowered, informed to follow the plan.
And they could also bring to the table financial expertise in
Yeah.
community development projects.
Mhm.
Be huge.
Yeah. Again, the
That person exists in those things.
Yes.
St. Albans has one.
We all, so
St. Albans City.
I was gonna answer your question about the select board and say like, well, they've been so far responsive to things
Yeah.
that we've asked them to approve. They approved a housing resolution.
Mhm.
And the housing resolution, one of its main recommendations was to bring in financial community development expertise, to use ARPA money to either hire a person or hire a consultant. And by the way, we gave them the name of a company that we learned about from the city manager at St. Albans. That is like a municipal real estate development, community development expert. And while they adopted the resolution, the action items that were recommended, that particular one has not yet been acted upon. Yeah. Right, and we, in the town plan, like, this group also is pretty ambitious group. And instead of just updating the town plan, we decided we wanted to sort of take the good things from that and the data from that, but we wanted to start fresh. We wanted a new format. We wanted a new voice. We wanted to give it a strategic structure. So if you're that really does reflect not, we were guided by a consultant, but we were very hands-on through the process. So that really reflects our thinking. And this whole idea of improved capital planning is in the town plan. There's like this chapter, getting it done.
No, I read the whole thing.
Yeah, it has like
months ago.
30 items on it. And it's like, we were just talking to Linda about the other day, like, we need like the laminated getting it done list on the wall that every committee and the select board is constantly referencing, because that really is like the North, what they adopted is the North Star of the plan. And like Chris said, without investment, without making decisions, without really holding ourselves accountable to that plan, it's kind of a BS plan. It's very pretty, but it's not going to happen. And it's just going to sort of be more of the same. I would say also hearing from the public, having lived here for a really long time, the public has higher standards than they had 20 years ago. They want the town government to be accomplishing more. They want their quality of life to be improved with better walking and biking and, places to go in town. Like, they just want more. There's more hungry aspirations, and they don't want to just be like a rich ivory tower town. They want to be like a cool, like, stuff is happening and there's new kids in the schools. And, we look at like Heinsberg and Fairfax and we go, well, they're like whipping our butts. from a competitive standpoint, and families are gonna choose to move there instead of choosing to move here. So I would say they've been responsive, they adopted the housing resolution. They purchased a property, which in some ways was not exactly what we were advocating that they do at that moment in time, but okay, so they obviously felt spurred to action. And then they've adopted the town plan, but sort of like now the proof is in the pudding, like that was the easy part. That sort of placated us.
Yeah.
And because we've been agitating.
Yeah.
And placated a lot of people, like, great, now we have this great plan, everybody can go home and, you know, go watch soccer and, yeah. So,
That's all? Like,
yeah,
that's all you got for me?
That's it.
I mean,
right,
the good,
Wastewater.
yeah, the good news is we've had plenty of time to talk about it and we're pretty united in our
Mhm.
view of how to move forward.
and we're available as a resource, because we can meet, we break out into small groups, we do task
Yeah.
force, we get stuff done. I think we don't all always agree. We have a good tenor, good debate. We have good public outreach. We have good offline dialogue with different residents. I think we could help you.
Yeah.
By backing this up. So you're not out on a limb with no clothes on, you know? We're like, no, that's what the town plan says. Here, it's right here. This is why we worked on this for 2 years. It's been adopted. Why are we still debating this? It's more like now we're executing. We're no longer debating, we're executing. But that's gonna take,
Some work, some energy, and some effort and some.
and some,
decision.
and some
Choice.
grit.
Some
And-
choice, right?
And the select board needs to do that.
Right. And like
We
Sabina
can't
said,
pass
buy-in.
laws. Select board does.
Yeah, the select board needs to buy into the plan, and that's more than just adopting it. They need to talk about it. They need to socialize it. They need to finance it. They need to look through the list and and like Susan said, like, what am I doing today at this meeting that contributes to this plan?
Yep.
And the rest is noise. And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying you have to deprioritize some of that noise.
How does it fit into the overall plan?
Can I jump in and just boldly ask Peter what would be really fabulous? Given what my peers are saying, it'd be fabulous to sort of have a standing agenda item on the select board meetings that asks us for a planning commission sort of update on progress report, and it enables us to hold ourselves, but also hold other parts of the select board and others accountable for the progress. So sort of like you're saying, Susan, like, how do we make it tangible, not just a checklist on the wall, but is there a way that we structurally make it that it is in front of you and us every time you meet? Like, where we are building in an accountability structure because it is a standing item on the agenda for the planning commission. So whether it's including us or it doesn't, but that there be a standing item on the progress that we are asking to see made. And I think Susan, I think you're referencing the getting it done. We have begun to create what we call SMART goals that are sort of that we can share with you, which are sort of interim steps towards the final goal that we could share and sort of ask for a time of accountability. Here's where we're supposed to be. How we doing? What thought, what's getting in the way, and what are you committing to, select board, or what are you asking others to commit to keep this progress moving forward? I think that would be incredibly helpful. So that we don't lose the momentum that we have built. And it would also provide you with a blueprint of when you need to come back to us to say, hey, you all aren't following through on something, or we need your help. And I know that Susan and others on our planning commission have been incredibly willing to do a lot of work between meetings. And so I just want to say that there's, in addition to having sort of that public accountability, having the time and space to have like conversations where we are bringing one another along. I mean, we've been able to do a lot because we do a lot together and there's a lot of conversation. And I want to just appreciate the ways in which members of the planning commission are open and wanting that access and communication with the select board, and recognizing that's more difficult for the select board given the open meeting laws. But I did want to give kudos for the responsiveness and the openness for that continued dialogue and joint meetings when we can, and joint accountability.
Sabina.
Actually, I was gonna mention the joint meetings. At the last select board meeting, Catherine specifically said that she had been hoping to have a joint meeting with this committee. So maybe you could reach out to her and, you know, see if that can materialize sooner rather than later. Because it seems like we're at a place in this conversation where it would be really great to just all sit down together and get on the same page.
Yeah.
Again,
Mhm.
and also to Peter and I guess just kind of by default would have to be you, but you know, Wayne used to come to our meetings on a regular basis. And so I would say the precedent and invitation is open, you know, and he would just pop in and, you know, maybe not stay the whole time, but he was a presence, I would say. And I think that was very helpful. So I think even Zoom.
So one of the questions you asked at the very outset was kind of the mechanics of collaboration. So Linda and John they are kind of like our formal neural network between the two organizations. So like for planning joint meetings and for making sure that, you know, John knows what we are doing that we think the select board needs to know, like we really rely on that communication path a lot. That said, we would love to do joint meetings a couple times a year at least. You are absolutely welcome to come anytime. I think it's brilliant that you're here this evening as a way of, you know, starting your orientation. Really appreciate being able to explain to you kind of where we're coming from and what we've seen and what we've learned. You absolutely could reach out to me or really any member of the planning commission at any time. We now have good tenure. Nobody's new. Everybody's been here at least 3-4 years, I think is the minimum. So we kind of have our rhythm down pretty well, I would say.
Just to augment what you said.
If you say wastewater one more time.
Not just,
Wastewater, I'll say it.
It's like a drinking game.
It is. Yeah, if you're on Zoom, you can.
Every time.
play
Every
that.
time somebody says wastewater, you can take a swig.
That's right.
I won't say it,
But you're
but it
thinking.
would be nice if perhaps,
Wastewater.
no, it would be nice if perhaps once a month, someone from the select board, and rotate between the three of you, would participate in our meetings. It was true. When Wayne would come in, it was kind of nice. There he is. He could hear what we were saying without it being a formal meeting, and he could convey that. But it would be nice to have, you know, one of the three of you come by here once a month. You don't have to come here for every single one of our meetings, but
No, and
Twice a month?
yeah,
We do
Twice a
twice a month, yeah.
and
we got a
also
lot of work to do.
Wayne would come sometimes when we would have public forum on specific topics and we would have a presenter and then the public would get lots of airtime to comment on
Yep.
that topic or thing. And then he'd be able to hear that and obviously then consolidate some of that in whatever way that's helpful to the select board. So I do think there's value because some of it you'll hear in our notes and, you know, the plan, but then you'll see where it came from.
Then
You
to
can comment on it too.
answer your question with a ribbon and a bow, what we're gonna be focused on for the next several months
Wastewater.
is not wastewater, is looking at the zoning for the village centers, which includes the zoning for Riverside. And we intend to deliver recommendations for zoning amendments for that this year. And our request, I guess, would be that it doesn't hit your desk cold. But that, as we're going through the process, it's several months
Tuned in and aware of the
process.
conversation.
Yeah, totally aware. If you have issues, concerns, feed them into us so that we can include that in our work. And that's like the primary kind of like big ticket item that we'll be working on.
Bylaw modernization grant.
Right. And I think that is based on the faith that we are going to be enabling the zoning to enable the density that we think is necessary for appropriate growth in the community and then village center growth.
Mhm.
And so without wastewater infrastructure, it's really a waste of our time.
I knew that was gonna come.
I mean, maybe not a waste, but it's
No,
not gonna
it is.
achieve the
It's-
goals. It's gonna nibble around the edges and maybe make things better, but it's really a handshake.
We'd also have discussed as a planning commission being more a participant in both the capital plan and the annual budget, which we collectively missed last year and would not like to miss.
What do you mean you missed it?
Well, I think it's okay to say we didn't remember to ask to be a part of it.
By the time it was done, it was too late for
Not
us
that
to
we
say
didn't remember.
Well,
We didn't
we
ask
did.
to be a part of it because we were heads down into the town plan. And chose not to really extend ourselves into the budget process. The budget process.
It feels weird that you guys would be involved in the budget process.
Well, in fact, it's one of the explicit abilities that a planning commission has is to advise the select board about the capital budget. And in some cases, we could draft a capital budget and then you would approve it. It's one of the things we're allowed to do. But this fall, the budget was really convoluted because Wayne resigned and there was an interim person. And so the select board didn't really follow their normal procedures. We were heads down on trying to finish the town plan. It was just sort of like
Sort of came and went.
one more thing that wasn't.
But for
Yeah.
example, in my opinion, personal opinion, it would have been nice if there was a line item in the town budget for municipal services going forward. Unspecified, it doesn't even necessarily have to be wastewater, it could be
Right.
water, but just as a general reminder to the community that yes, this is coming.
Mhm.
It is important. It's part of the new town plan. We will need to collectively invest in this for our future.
Mhm.
So I think that it was an oversight not having that in this year's budget.
Mhm.
And if we had been part of the process, we would have advocated for it.
I think that's what strikes me too, is if you step back from what you know of how this town runs, if you look at the state statute, it does explicitly say that the planning commission can make the budget and a long-term capital plan.
Mhm.
That's a plan.
Mhm.
And it goes back to what I was saying about the select board not living in the minutia. They live in the minutia of every dollar that gets spent, and it's really hard to live in that place and also make the bigger plan. It's almost like the current rules should be reversed, right? We should be living in the minutia. They should be making a dictate about these are the most important things to the town. Make sure the town plan reflects that. These are the most important things. Show me a new version of the 20-year capital budget plan that reflects that, right? And it's a little bit reversed right now.
So I promised Amy that I'd be here for only half, it says half hour meetings. I'm just gonna pop in, introduce myself, ask
Yep.
what they're working on.
Yep.
So I want to say a few things. Which is, that everything you're saying, I think, not everything, but the vast majority, 99% of what you're saying, I feel like I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense to me. I'm completely on board with that. My perspective, and I will say this, I am saying this on the record, has always been that the select board before I was there and now is sort of back on their heels all the time. And then it's sort of just like, okay, so what's getting thrown at us tonight? We have tonight, and then I'll see you again in 2 weeks. And that is always in kind of a reactive mode.
And it's like a 4-hour marathon,
I would be happy if it was a 4-hour marathon.
right?
My first meeting was 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
Midnight.
We stick almost religiously to 2.
Right, the agenda we have for what day is today? Tuesday? The agenda we have for Thursday has time marks. We had to have time marks. We need to have a 2-hour window and put time marks next to it. And when the time comes up, we decide to keep moving forward or to end that conversation. We have to get this under control.
There's a clock I've heard as well.
I'm not sure if we're gonna.
Like a
I'm not
chat clock?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like a timing.
I'm not sure if I want that. That feels a
I don't know if
little,
that'll be
that feels a little aggressive to me, but. So I agree with the idea that like I said, I don't know if I did it in executive session or out front, but like when do the 3 of us get together and like just talk about stuff and future orientation and get out of this reactive mode? That said, I then sat in a 3.5-hour executive session. So there's a lot of stuff that is taking up a lot of airtime. Which I don't offer that as like an excuse for why they're always like that, but it's a reality that it's a volunteer person, it's a volunteer situation, and 2 of us, Eric works and I work, and I think Catherine, I don't know, busy or whatever, she has the most time. But it's definitely, like I say, 11 days in, it's definitely like 14 days ago. It's like a manpower thing. It's like, holy crap, like I have 1,000, I probably have 150 emails about stuff. Just trying to, and a lot of it is like this minor detailing stuff, like how are we ever going to get, I'm not going to do a year of this sort of always just trying to shuffle through stuff and not.
You might look
Step back.
at the minutes for Fairfax and Heinsberg and some of these towns, St. Albans, that have a town manager and have a structure where the elected council is setting policy and there's someone there to execute.
Right. It's like a school.
Right.
Right.
Look at the minutes.
Yeah.
But who's the superintendent in this operation?
Right.
Look at the minutes of some of these towns that are outperforming us.
Yeah.
And see what the select board's talking about. The meetings are short and they're really on big picture stuff.
Yeah.
And part of it is if you have the executive staff who's allowed by charter, allowed to make decisions and has the trust, the cycle time on everything increases. Right now, the cycle time is 2 weeks. It's like, it's nothing that requires 4 steps. By charter, it takes 2 months.
Yeah.
As opposed to having an executive who is authorized to make a decision.
All right, so let's go back. Peter, you sounded like you were going through a list.
No, just that I'm on board and I'm also really aware that holy crap, there's a lot of stuff flying at the select board and we, the select board, will be bringing this up Thursday night. With the 2 of them, we have to find some way to get out from under this. We can't just be in this reactive mode all the time because otherwise, I mean, like, all joking aside, like, what's the fun in it? This is not fun. Like, what's fun is like thinking about the things you're talking about. That's why I wanted to do this, to like help move the town forward. Having 150 emails about nothing is not how I want to spend my time. So,
In a way, Peter, the select board is like the CEO board of directors. Your job is not to pay attention to that details. That's what we do.
Right.
Your job is the big picture. Just like a CEO doesn't go down there and write checks. They don't go out and design the ad copy. They set the strategy. That's your job.
So it's delegation and what can you delegate and who can you delegate
And who can you
to?
delegate to? And if you don't have people to delegate to,
Mhm.
you got to get them.
And I would say there is interest on this side of the table in budget planning and stuff like that and experience. So feel free to tap into that. That was one of the thousands of emails you've gotten in the last 2 weeks, was me being like, hi, yes, being like, hi, come to the planning commission. One of my personal big things, one of my things on the list on the SMART goals is my name is next to capital budget planning. And then-
For your email. I wrote
and
back,
then
"It's
you
so great."
said-
Like, nope, not me.
Right, no, and then you said, oh, will you be my liaison for the planning
Like, no.
commission? And I was like, no, stick with Susan, but just budget. Maybe the planning commission can take some of that.
Yep.
And run with it and build something, a tool for everyone to use and execute with.
We are all volunteers, working
Yes,
full-time jobs
yes.
on top of that, but
Yes, we all are, yes.
All right, well, in the interest of time checks and Amy, we need to keep Amy happy so that you can continue to do the job. Any parting comments before we move
he's
on?
had 20 emails since he
Yeah.
sat down.
Meanwhile, my school budget was voted down, my superintendent just resigned.
Oh,
Well, people getting fired in my building, like.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, just know we're on your side.
Yes,
I only have one more year, so I'm in no danger, but,
yeah.
okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, good luck.
I'm gonna be in contact for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, at the very least, just through Susan as a
Yeah.
friend and I mean, it's gotta be figured out.
Mhm. Okay, great. Congratulations again.
Thank
you
Good luck.
very much.
Okay,
Kay said to me, in about 2 months, you're gonna wonder why you work so hard in this position,
uh-huh,
Chuck's wife, and it was about half an hour.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Sign in?
yes, that would be helpful. Did Chuck sign in?
No.
No, but he's out the door already.
All right, we'll sign him in. All right, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item is to approve minutes of February 20th.
Read through them. I wrote to approve. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Eric,
Second.
second from Sarah. Does anybody have any edits or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Nay. Abstain. Okay. The next items are administrative, organization. So Linda, you want to walk us through this?
Yeah,
Please.
I put in the Google Drive document, the rules of procedure that was, I think, a red line version that I had updated. There's only a few.
Linda, I can't hear you for whatever reason.
Is this better? Can you hear me?
A little bit better.
A little bit better? Maybe
Oh,
I
yeah,
should-
that's good. There you go.
Okay. I'll bring this mic close to me while I'm talking. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull up the red line version that I'm sure you have all already looked at. And I'll just highlight the changes that were made. So it's mostly the same as last year's. I just updated, the previous versions of planning coordinator, so I changed it to town planner. I took off the JCAT as a meeting notice posting location because logistically it has been more of a challenge than anything.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah,
Does it have to be 3 sites or just 2 sufficient?
it's 3, so it's the town office, the post office.
Oh, so we can only
And
one
Jericho.
site.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep,
Okay.
then it'll still be on the website also.
Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you are showing me something other than your USB drive, I am not seeing it, which doesn't bother me, but for the recording purposes, it might be good to see what you are actually looking at.
Yep, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. So, hold on. This one, right? Yeah.
Now I see it. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, and then I just kind of streamlined this section here where there's a larger section of red line, just because it was basically repetitive of what I said, what it says in the agenda item above, and I just said notices shall be posted in accordance with protocols for agenda as described above. That was the bulk of the changes that I made. So.
Was there a change you made that you didn't highlight that says Linda now runs everything?
No, I've not made that change.
Linda, are we posting in the same places that all the other like the the select board posts and anybody else, like any other committees? Or commissions? Because I noticed it shows that only 2 places where we're putting up notices.
No, we're posting here at Hall. And then we have postings in the post office, the Jericho post office, and at the Jericho market.
And is that the same as as all the others? I mean, I'm just wondering if there's an across the board expectation for all town business that we're following, or it's a curiosity question more than anything.
Yeah, those are the places that the select board notices get posted as well.
Okay, all right, thank you for answering.
That's the Jericho general up at the Jericho Center or
The
the market?
The
The
market.
market.
So what's reaching out at the center? Do we need, I mean, just as in the name of equality or equity,
There
we've
is
got,
I do not post at the center
okay.
store.
Are you physically doing
I am.
it? Okay. I'm just kind of, I thought
You live near the center, don't you?
that was like
So you could post.
Jessica
I could post.
Paula was doing that as a routine for the other. The committee. Am I wrong on that?
Paula does it for a lot of the committees.
Okay.
And she is kind enough to ask me if I have something to post, but I'm often posting on Friday. I'm always posting on Friday afternoons, and she is typically, no one else is around most of the time on Friday
Got it.
afternoons.
Got it.
Catherine Sonic used to do it as well, and
Mhm.
Paula did it for us while we were sans planner, which was
Mhm.
a very sad time.
Mhm.
So that has always been the way it's been done.
I just wonder, by not doing anything up in the corners, are we missing part of our
You mean Jericho
constituency?
Center.
Jericho Center, sorry, yes,
I mean, we also usually post on Front Porch Forum,
yes.
always post to the website.
Right.
Store doesn't really have like a spot.
No,
Jericho Market
Behind
has
the
a
scenes.
Yeah.
community
the other
bulletin
board, right,
board,
yeah.
Jericho Center
If anything,
store.
the library might be a better
Mhm.
choice, because at least, you know, there's somebody there who's accountable and who manages the bulletin board at the store,
right,
like it's a free for all.
yeah.
No, it's not. They have a policy now where you have to give notices to the desk and they post them. It's not
At the store?
at the Jericho Market.
Mhm.
No, I'm talking about the country.
At the
store.
country
Where
store.
you can take your tag and you put it on top of the guy's tag and it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, fully transparent. It was kind of like that at JCAT, which is one of the reasons
Yes.
that I was like, I can't do this
Yes.
anymore because I couldn't find a tax sometimes, or I'd have to like put my notice on top of over somebody else's, and I was like, I don't know about
Right.
this.
That's why I'm suggesting that the Jericho Town Library as a, if
If we want
on
something.
site in Jericho
in the
Center
center.
is needed, or then the library, I think, would be preferable to the country store because of that organizational thing.
Mhm.
The bulletin board in the library is much more organized.
Never been myself, but I believe you.
How much foot traffic?
On Sundays, that whole square is filled with
There's
cars.
a Pretty good little constituency there at the library. I mean, Catherine, that'll be great.
I should email it to Catherine and ask her to print one and post it.
That would be great. I'm sure.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to
Happy to.
physically go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just email it to her.
Yeah, I'm sure she.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessary to have it as on the list, or do you guys want to add it to the list?
I don't care,
Yeah.
but you know.
It's kind of like Front Porch Forum is not in the list, but by
Right.
habit, we generally do
Right.
that, because we know probably 90% of the people
I
learn
think most of the
about the agendas.
awareness comes from reading that.
Yeah.
Or if we had a lit sign at the high school.
You're gonna bring that up again?
Wow, that came from the archives.
Digging deep.
Have you been holding on to that?
Oh, boy.
Okay, does anybody have
We have
any?
8 people with comments in the chat there, or 8 chat comments.
No, that's just, oh, Heidi said, I
Yeah.
can't hear you, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's nobody out there,
Okay,
except for Heidi. Well,
Yeah.
Heidi.
there's nobody.
All right, does anybody want to suggest any changes other than the changes that Linda has already kindly and capably provided?
Very efficient. Nicely done.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
So I
so
think we need
a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Eric?
Second.
And
I'll
Sarah
second.
Oh, we're hiding.
Sarah got it first. They're like a duet over here. It's like drums and cello or whatever. Any further discussion on the rules of procedure for 2024?
I was thinking more like Fred and Ginger.
Yes. Okay, could be like that. All those in favor of adopting the rules of procedure as amended by Linda and presented this evening, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Next.
Before we move on,
Oh.
did print out a clean version,
Mhm.
assume, with the hopes that there wouldn't be any other changes, so before you leave, if you could all have your signature, do you want me to pass it around?
Sure.
Okay.
No time like the present.
Yes.
Yeah. Linda, do
I-
you want me to come by or what should I do?
Yeah, are you around locally in the next few days
Yeah,
or next, what would work for you?
it's a very good question, but I can make it happen.
Okay, well, I'm here most days during the daytime, till like past 4.
Okay, I will probably cruise by on Friday because it's when I have least things scheduled. Okay?
Okay, sounds good, but check with me on timing Friday because really, I'm going to have evening meetings, so.
Okay, I will send you an email with timings. Okay,
And if we can't connect this week, I will bring it to the next PC meeting and you can just do it as loud as her.
Okay, so the next is to nominate a chair.
I nominate Susan as our chair.
Yeah.
I second. We all second.
Okay, we have a discussion.
It's been so great.
Thank you very much.
Without Susan.
No. I really enjoy the group, love being the chair. Really, really happy if somebody else would want to do it. Not happy because I don't want to do it anymore, but just more like feel extremely confident that anybody could serve.
So you're not done yet.
I don't feel done. Yes, that's true. And I should also add that I will be physically away. Okay, so I guess any other nominations?
Does anyone not want to nominate themselves and you need me to nominate you? Just gonna put that out there.
That's a good point.
Ask me next year.
Okay. All those in favor?
Maybe. I'm in favor.
Aye.
Yes, aye, aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I'll do my best to deserve the slot, working with this group. Like talking to Peter, I feel so proud of us.
And we'll do our best to support you. You
Yeah.
don't, just because you're nominally in charge and we all appreciate your leadership does not mean that you need to do all the work.
Oh, God, absolutely. And I know that from 4 years of experience.
And I
Yeah.
would say you're speaking as a clerk.
Okay.
Professional way that I've never heard a clerk speak.
Okay.
I
And when
nominate
she steps
Sarah.
in, everything's on time.
Mhm.
I would second that nomination.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Sabina nominates Sarah, Eric seconds
Seconds.
Sarah as the clerk. Any discussion?
How do you feel, Sarah?
I feel two ways at the same time. The classic human ability to hold conflicting emotions in the same space. I enjoy being the clerk. I feel very supported being the clerk. I do not have any aspirations to be the chair. And I think it's important that I'm transparent about that because if someone else wants to be the clerk in preparation to learn how to be the chair, this would be an important time for
Mhm.
them to step up and know that this is not a position that like I said, that I'm holding with an aspiration in mind. It doesn't mean I would never want to be the chair. It just means like I'm not looking outward thinking, this is my grand master plan. So if someone else was thinking in that direction, I don't want to stand in the way of that. I'm very open to that. And at the same time, if someone else wanted to be the chair in a year, 2 years, whatever, they don't need to be the clerk first. So just all the options I think are open.
But you're willing.
Absolutely,
Sure. Okay.
yes. I'm willing and at this time, I have limited ambitions.
Good
So,
place to be.
so if anyone else had more ambitions, it would not be seen as a hostile takeover.
I don't see anybody jumping up.
I don't either.
Oh, should we have a rule that only one person can decide that they want to vacate the chair, like they did in the House with Kevin McCarthy?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, anyway,
But then you have to have a secret envelope saying who you want to
Right.
be after you.
right, right.
That would be, just the idea of a secret envelope sounds very exciting.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, all those in favor of Sarah serving as chair? Say aye.
And
Oh,
clerk.
I mean clerk.
Clerk, oh yeah, Susan.
Oh, it's Freudian slip.
Susan.
Chair, wait.
Clerk. Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
all of you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next item is to confirm our liaison roles.
And in addition to that, the food hub task force isn't on that list.
Oh, okay, hang on, let me get it in the screen share so I can see it.
Now she realizes that she's on everything.
Right? You don't want to show her the list. She'll see how many times her name's on it.
Can you see that, Heidi?
I can, and I noticed the renaming of the Trails Committee. Nicely done, team.
Mhm.
I don't, can I just add this?
Yeah, insert.
Above.
HUB.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Wendy and I are co-liaising. Oops.
So Linda and I were wondering, is the Tri-Town Transportation Committee still an actual entity? Does anybody know?
I don't think it has come up.
I thought it was well, that it had been active and it's now kind of either completed its mission or has disbanded. but I'm not sure.
Something like that.
It's not my task is to restart it.
Maybe our liaison could verify that.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah. Have you been to any meetings? Did you know you were the liaison?
I did, I had seen this, so I knew coming into the meeting, but I'm gonna Google it because I don't know where else I would start. If you have,
The web, they have a web.
It's on the town web.
We have a
Site.
they have a page on the.
okay,
I don't think they're active.
No.
I don't think so either.
Was that
but I think it's
Dave?
important that, because that would be the entity which helps us go forward with the,
Bike ped plan, for sure.
no,
Transit.
not that, I'm not done with the microtransit, plan. And so it would be worth looking into and bringing that maybe back into the conversation.
Right, because that is on, that is an action
An
item. Yeah.
Within 3 years,
Right, so if they're not an active committee, we're gonna have to figure out
I don't think.
how
they
to
are.
organize
And I
something
think Wayne
instead.
Powell was involved in that maybe, so he might be a good reference.
okay.
So Chris, I'm gonna delete this question here.
Yeah, I'm also noticing it means Chris is on 3 committees and I am on 1.
No, you're on 2.
Where's my second one?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you're right. I mean, I was reading Wendy and thinking Heidi.
That's it. I know how that happens. Yes, Wendy's on 3.
2.5.
Okay. However you want to slice it. So I'm noticing a little bit of an imbalance, and I don't know if that is reflective of people's ability and capacity. And just noticing, does it feel okay that it appears that some members are taking on more than others?
Are you saying some of us are like slacking because we only have one?
I am happy to slack but not at somebody else's expense, right? Like I don't feel a need to, if it feels good to everyone, great. But if there are people who are feeling overburdened, then I would want folks to feel comfortable saying that and asking to be rotated off, because there are a couple of us that are only assigned once.
Well, I can say that I'm minimally involved in the energy task force. I was more kind of involved in very select conversations about things that might impact zoning.
And I've been going to every meeting.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying yeah. So that doesn't help.
Right. So
But I have been going every month, so.
yeah, so Sabina, she's like the gold star.
Well, and Sabina's also been going to all the bike
Yeah.
head committee meetings with me recently.
Well, but that's just sort of, well,
More
get their
fun.
feet on the pedal,
Yeah.
as we say.
Mhm.
Right.
I think 2 things. I think first, anyone who feels overwhelmed should speak up if they feel like they're not keeping up. And or anyone who feels that they need a change, like Susan and I switched because I wasn't feeling that I was making headway with now the bicycle pedestrian connectivity group. And I feel very at home with the DRB because they're speaking my language and I really enjoy it. So if anyone feels like they would like a different assignment, I think that's a good conversation. Also, I see, looking down through this list for me, the Community Development Corp, I think, is the one that I'm most concerned about. Like, what the heck is going on? And I don't think that's Chris's job to answer that question.
No, but they're actually, they're not holding the next 2 meetings. They're postponing their meeting until May. And they're also putting out a call for, new members
Right,
because they're down to 3.
right.
When do they meet?
They meet the 4th Thursday of the month. I just went to a webinar on community trusts. which was very interesting. And I forwarded that to them to see if it could just help. If nothing else, make them feel less overwhelmed and alone, that there are lots of other towns who are going through similar kind of growing pains as they're feeling. But, they did have some mentions in that webinar of different entities that can help an organization like that, a 503C within the town. So anyway, for what it's worth, but they're kind of struggling. They need more people and, you know. fresh ideas.
And I think some stronger leadership, maybe more visionary leadership might be the right word.
Do they get volunteers or are their members appointed by the select board, which I know is
Right.
still a volunteer, but,
Yeah,
or are they basically a very independent
I
entity?
I don't know. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's volunteers, but I could be totally wrong.
Mhm.
So Chris, if you'd like help on that, I can do some, but not all of the Thursdays.
Okay, let's be in touch about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, if it's in the affordable housing is very concerned about that because that is
Right.
seen as one of the development choices.
Can I add you here then as a?
Yes, yeah, just most Thursday afternoons from mid-May until September, I will be
Rowing.
paddling
Yeah.
at
So
sunset.
you're a dragon boat person, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's pretty hard to give up sunsets on a boat on the lake.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
gotta prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, again, that, what I would say about that is let us know how we can help you.
sure.
If it means another person coming with you to make a show of support,
Okay,
not a show of we want to take over, like a show of how can we help you
right.
to them.
Okay,
And Heidi, if you need help with the MMUSD, my wife got reappointed despite not running, so.
Oof.
Oh, popular.
Yeah.
Lucky
Okay.
her.
Any other changes to the chart? Anybody want to get rid of anything like
Well,
Sarah said?
I
or
feel like I'm
change
not a
anything?
real effective energy task force. Remember, I've been very topical. I've just been like
Mhm.
focused on the Peter conversation about his interest in energy, renewable energy and new build. So if someone else wants to take that on, that would probably be a more consistent presence.
I go.
And that's Sabina, I'll up my food hub game.
Yeah, you might have to, because all of a sudden they started meeting on the day that I'm on the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission, and
Okay.
I'm like, oh.
There's only 5 weeknights a year, every week, you know.
No, no.
Okay, any other changes? We're good? Okay. Book it, Dano, as they say. Okay, the next topic is town meeting. And I'm just also looking at the time. So I think we're fine, but let's just keep that in mind. So fun, I heard. Really fun.
It was very long.
Yeah. I guess
That's
maybe
one
we
word
should
for it.
start hearing about the table. Thank you very much, Wendy and Heidi, right? You guys organized the table and the materials and were there. So did that go okay? Or thank you for doing it. Did you have any fun or interesting or concerning takeaways, conversations?
I think Heidi and Chris were the convo folks, because I moved
Chris
over,
was there.
yeah, because I moved
Thank you.
over to the DEI table after setup.
there was not a lot of participation. I mean, a few people stopped by, but I don't recall there being anything noteworthy or concerning or surprising.
Heidi,
Yeah, I would say that
Grace?
most of the folks that I spoke with were engaged in wanting to know more about the multimodal pathway and the Riverside connection. So, and most were wanting to see the maps in granular detail related to how various projects would impact their lots. So it's a very personal connection that people were making to some of those issues. But nothing really concerning, just more curiosity. And just a call out that if and when we do it again, like really having our best maps available and people who can speak to them, which was not always me, as it turns out. But I was able to share that the difference between decisions that were already made versus discussions that were ongoing. And I think that was really helpful for people to understand sort of where we were in various processes.
Good. Okay. What about Linda? Did you have any thoughts to share on the meeting that sort of the planning commission should be aware of?
No, nothing specific to the planning commission.
So the controversy or the discussion about the garage bond,
It was not discussed.
Yeah.
not discussed at all,
No.
That wasn't on the floor, but that was on the Australian ballot.
but nobody just decided to talk about it anyway?
No.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't think they could have if they wanted to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you can at the tail end, you can bring things up.
Yeah. Plus, you never know, like lots of people talk about stuff, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Front Porch Forum has had a couple of people complaining about it, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
Congratulations to the DEI committee
That
on
was a big
having a
lift.
successful vote.
Yes,
Mhm.
that was, I was surprised.
Mhm.
Yeah. So now, there's been I know the select board put out a call for having folks involved and trying to envision what a new informational meeting or a series of informational meetings could be. And I think that's a really important discussion to have and for that DEI committee to be continually involved in that discussion.
Mhm.
So. Yeah, that was a big lift.
Okay, anything else on town meeting? Sort of like, it's over, let it be over.
Yeah.
I think my kid got fourth at the race he did that day, so that's what I was doing.
Okay, yeah,
It's not, unfortunately, I was not
yeah, I wasn't there.
focused
either.
on town meeting.
Yep.
I think whatever day that's new, non-town meeting to town meeting is gonna be, should be a day when there can be like like right now, town meeting is on a day when everyone with kids in the schools is either away or doing something, and I think it would be important to have it be a day of the week when family aged people can,
Yeah.
who want to.
Yeah.
probably a weekend.
Yeah, I would think Sunday afternoon if I was picking a day, because then you don't have to compete with
Football,
other things.
baseball.
But even then, childcare is,
Well, but there should be childcare too.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and the DEI committee is already talking about that, that's, to me, that's a no-brainer. But
So if we're gonna be hopefully more involved in influencing the budget and the capital plan for next year, then I would think we would anticipate some sort of either role or supporting role or lead up to, or something related to that informational meeting, depending on what kind of form it takes.
Good point. We should probably start thinking about that a little more seriously in another month or so.
Right.
Mhm.
Stop.
Okay. Moving on. to
Sorry, I didn't realize my mute was not on and I had a dog who
dog.
really
Okay.
wants attention.
Linda, the floor is yours.
It's very startling, Heidi. The shouting of stop, I was like, oh my God. All right,
Especially from Heidi.
yeah. So I've been working on the zoning audit with David for the bylaw modernization grant. We've met a couple times to go through the zoning, and I'm learning a lot. Really glad to have David to help, because turns out the zoning is very technical and detailed and complicated. I'm sure we all already knew that, but yeah, when you start to really pick it apart and say like, oh, well, this part we want to change, and then you realize, oh, well, then we have to change this over here, and we got to look at this over here, and
It's not all plastic flowers, is it?
nope, it's more like a spider web, and if you poke it here, then it stretches over here. So
But I guess, and I don't know, I'm just, it makes me think, which I thought as I was rereading it, does it really need to be so complicated?
in a perfect world, the answer would be no. I think some of what I'm learning is untangling what already exists to create something new is part of where the complexity lies. And I'm gonna need David's expertise in terms of like, can we just throw this part out? Do we keep some of it? So I think it's to be determined. And I know that the goal is to simplify things and to make it streamlined. But I'm gonna have to learn more about it, because as we go through the process, I'm really gonna need David's help.
Since this is just related to the village centers,
Mhm.
would it almost be worth just doing a clean slate on it?
I don't know.
It might be kind of nice to start that and actually,
Mhm.
because the last time we went through and did any zoning modifications, we did commercial district and a few other little ones. It was just, oh, it says this, well, we have to change this, and it was just rip it out, start fresh.
Mhm.
We might have way better ideas now.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask that question to David. I wouldn't want to lose something that we didn't intend to lose by throwing out the whole component. So I think, we'll figure that out as we work through it. And we haven't even actually gotten to the point of writing new language or even redlining. We're just reviewing sections, and we're like, oh, this section's related to this section. And so we're not even in the weeds yet with the text, but I could just see it coming.
You're just mapping the spider web.
Mhm.
Wendy, you were gonna ask.
Yeah, you were just getting in. I was just really curious about what that kind of audit process looks like. So you take a section and you're saying, okay, this section is dealing with A, B, and C, and then you do a search to see where else this section shows up in other parts of the document?
No, so far, what it looks like is a spreadsheet where we have one column that lists things like dimensional standards, minimum lot size, et cetera, all the things that I reviewed with you folks when I did the overview. And then there's a column that has the recommendations from the state guide that we're using as the model of the model district. And then there's a column that has the conventional standards in the Jericho zoning for the village center district. And then there's a column that has the PUD standards for the Jericho center zoning. So those are all like kind of lined up side by side, so we can see, here's what the state recommends, here's what the conventional standard says, here's what the PUD regulations say, and then we can kind of look at all of that and compare them and be like, okay, how should we modify, do we need to modify this section or not, and how, if so, what do we think the right way to do it is? So it's very interesting work. And at the next meeting, next PC meeting, the first one in April, David will be here to present like a very high level overview of some of the areas that we've already identified as needing tweaks. So you'll start to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit at the next meeting on some of the details for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did build a project page on the town website. It's linked from the planning commission page where there's like a blurb. I think it's like the top newsfeed item that talks about the zoning work that we were planning to do this year. And I added a link. Hopefully it'll work if you click on it. Just go to the new page. There's not a lot there yet, but it exists. So that was exciting. And I'll continue to work on building that out. let's see, the corner to Riverside Path, the select board is aware that they still need to revisit the alternatives and choose one ideally as a preferred, and I think it will be on one of their April agendas. The Riverside Sidewalk Project, I just received a copy of a historic resources report that was just completed. That was a requirement from the state. That was sort of the last thing we needed to get to complete the, what's called the NEPA process. NEPA stands for National Environmental Policy Act, and that's a very lengthy approval that all the projects need because they're funded through federal dollars. It's part of federal legislation. So that was exciting to kind of get through that phase, and the right-of-way phase will be where we go next. And so far that project is looking like it will be 100% completed within the state right-of-way, which means the town doesn't need to acquire any easements. And I haven't worked on a project where that's been the case yet, so I don't know exactly how efficient it's gonna, I'm expecting it to be more efficient than if we did need to get easements. But since it's the state, I'm thinking that we'll have to do some sort of coordination with probably the district, the V-Trans district.
So there were ways to get around some of the adjacent landowner issues that we heard the other day.
Well, she's talking about the sidewalk in
Yeah,
In Riverside.
in Riverside.
Yeah. Like
from the
church-
Jericho Market
Yeah.
to the
Park
to
Street.
the Park Street.
Yeah,
Right.
there was a whole bunch of
The
folks that
church
did meetings
didn't want
adjacent to it.
it.
The church didn't want it. There were several people who said, that's my driveway right there. There's a couple of spots where the right of way butts right up against the building.
Mhm.
So I'm surprised they're gonna find space for all that, unless they're gonna narrow the road a little bit.
I don't think they are planning to narrow the road, but it's state right of way, so there doesn't need to be permission from landowners, but obviously we'll be coordinating with them and having follow-up conversations
Yeah.
about, the work that's gonna be done there and how it's gonna change the existing frontage on the property.
Right. Well, there was the one guy who was like, I come up my driveway and then at the street, I'm at the top. How are you gonna put a sidewalk there when my driveway's already so much lower than?
Yeah.
And then is
Yeah.
my driveway,
And he had to back in and back
yeah,
out of his
yeah,
driveway.
yeah, the guy
Right.
right the back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the engineers,
Said,
Yep.
okay.
Have their work cut up and I'm
yeah, they've got it from what they're telling me, they have figured it out, so,
probably not their first sidewalk project.
yeah, exactly, that's why they're the experts.
That's why they're the.
So that's going well. I haven't heard anything yet about the grant I applied for to complete the path to MMU. I did email the contact person yesterday, who was supposed to hear in February. So he's probably getting a lot of emails from people asking the same question. So stay tuned on that. I'm still keeping my.
Who's the grantor in that case?
It's the Agency of Transportation
Okay.
in the state.
Yeah.
I did get formal confirmation of the UVM Leahy grant. I think last meeting it was sort of like approved, but tentatively and not formally. We were one of 13 projects that were selected for funding out of 140 proposals.
Great.
Nice work.
Wow, this is
So,
great.
Mhm.
I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Yeah, it's very exciting, and I think the result is going to be that we will receive a UVM intern to work for the town over the course of, I don't know if it'll be the summer, because I think with their student timing, it may be better for them to bring someone in the fall to do it as part of their second semester, their first semester coursework. And so as a reminder, the project that Jericho proposed is to work with a UVM intern to help develop an outreach strategy for the community wastewater project that we have yet to identify specifically, but talked a lot about tonight. And we're doing this grant in partnership with the Wyndham Regional Commission, which is the regional planning, one of the regional planning commissions in the southern part of the state. And their part of the project is that with the UVM GIS staff to create a wastewater mapping tool, which I think will look like a GIS layer I don't know how familiar you are with GIS maps, but a layer that will identify at the parcel level, I believe, which areas either have wastewater available or, and you'd be able to, my understanding is the goal is to be able to model and overlay like the zoning with where there's wastewater to see, identify areas that have good potential for development. And so I think as a partner to that project, I think Jericho will get a lot of visibility around our need for wastewater, which I think could help attract dollars to support a wastewater project. So that's encouraging. I do think it's going to be like Jericho will be sort of like the model town for this, which is great.
Do we think the wastewater the plan would be the project will be done? I mean,
The study,
the study.
do you have any updates on?
By September.
I do have an update. That's my next item. Yes, John literally today was finalizing the dates for the village meetings that we had to postpone. We were planning to do them around this time. But they're going to be, I think, in mid-April to early May. And so that's the next step. And then once we get through that, and the consultant gets some feedback on the alternatives that are available, I think we'll be able to pretty quickly get to the 90% report.
When
So we get to see it.
Yeah, when do we get to see it?
Well, that's a question for the select. I can't answer that.
Has the select board seen it?
Yes,
That's the 60% report.
the 60%.
And the 60% report is what is going to be presented at these village meetings.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
Or
what it will show
portions
are,
of it?
yeah, it's. There's gonna be maps and there's gonna be a lot of tables that are very complicated and engineering with like gallons per day, wastewater flows and stuff like that.
Do we have a role in any of those meetings? And should we?
Yes.
I think we
Take the
should.
temperature of the room for one, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you're invited to attend. I'm not sure that there'd be a formal role. I'm hoping that the select board will play a formal role in introducing them.
But are these,
Yeah,
is,
so.
just to clarify again, is the feasibility study is a town-wide thing?
Looks at the 3 village centers and the commercial district.
So when those are presented to the relevant neighborhood groups, is there a hierarchy to that list? Or are they presented as an even? Because I don't think that the reality is that those should be all the same hierarchy of
Mhm.
priority. And I
There's
would,
pros and cons associated with each, which ultimately I think does result in the hierarchy. I haven't seen the presentation that the engineers put together, so I'm not sure it will be presented in a hierarchical way. Is that what you're asking?
well, I guess I'm asking that as this gets out to the town, that there's at the same time, a community-wide understanding of how the town might most benefit from it. Which I guess I would think would tend to come from us more than anybody else,
Mhm.
Or the select board.
or the select board, but,
But we need to see the whole thing, not just piecemeal. To be able to have any reasonable perspective.
Mhm.
I guess I'm just wondering if there's not a sort of, maybe hierarchy isn't the right word, but if there's not a longer term vision in the presentation, will people be upset about things that they don't need to be upset about? And will the thing as a whole lose momentum because?
Delivery is important.
Yeah, they're sort of like, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot
We have
by
an
not doing
opportunity.
a really good job.
Yes.
Or,
And
Yeah.
it sounds like what they're thinking is that and maybe this isn't right, but that they're gonna go to, they have this 60% report. And now they need more public reaction, say, to the 60% report. And they think that public reaction is going to, or the report will be delivered to, and they will receive input from the people in that village center. And we experience that when you go into the village center, you get good participation because people are like, oh, you're right in my backyard. But I think what we're kind of worried about is like, we'll hold the phone because the whole town is going to benefit potentially because we have housing diversity goals and we have environmental goals and the whole town is going to pay. So are we sure that it's the right approach to be very tactical and local and not really want to like look at it from a big picture? Whereas I think my inclination, and I feel like we talked about this before, was we were like, we need to set it up. We need like, and I know we don't have our wastewater outreach plan, but it's sort of like for these meetings to be attended and to be supported, like where's the communication plan for those meetings? If it's just letters to the people who live there, which is how the surveys was done, that is a very different approach than what maybe we think is necessary. That seems very risky to me. Because most people are going to be like, I just bought a new septic system. I don't need a septic system, or I love the septic system. They're just going to be like very local, but maybe you could reassure us and say, actually, that's the way you do it. And this is appropriate. And all this big picture stuff will come later at the 90% plan. And this is just to validate some of the data and some of the findings and some of the conclusions. And so it's appropriate for it to be detailed.
But there's also the concern that I think Chris was getting at, which is that if you get those people circled up and show them a tiny bit of information about what's been collected and what the engineers have found, then someone who's in that group who knows just enough about engineering to be dangerous is going to type up a whole thing up Front Porch Forum about how it's not needed and why are we doing this and we can't believe we spent all this money and they don't know what they're talking about and nobody wants to pay for it, or this is an amazing thing for sure. XYZ Town Center, Jericho Center, Corners, whatever, is going to get a new wastewater system. I was so amped up about that meeting. It's totally possible. We're going to spend all the money because our meeting was first. So they obviously think we're the most important, like whatever people
We've been
will fill
controlling the
in.
narrative.
Yes, however people will fill in the blanks, that is not going to get us to our ultimate destination is really dangerous. And that's.
I mean, everybody's going to try and say, this is great in your backyard.
Right.
And unless we're making.
Or I'm not paying for it.
And we really
look
need to
at
set the
Westford.
stage for that.
Westford, year after year, and they only have one town center.
Yeah.
I know.
And they got
Right.
signs all over the.
Okay,
Those
so those are our concerns.
Understood. And
I'd like to see it.
the engineers do this over and over and over again at a lot of different communities.
Do they do it in communities with 3 town centers and a
They do it
commercial
in
district?
Westford.
And they've done it in a community that has 2 town centers. I think we're the only town with 3
Plus 1,
plus
Yeah.
1.
Right.
right?
The commercial district will be presented simultaneous with the Riverside, because that is how it was packaged in
Sure.
the beginning.
Linda, can I interrupt?
So is this meeting really like a validation? Like
I think that's the questions. We don't know, like, I think,
Potential options, these are the options that exist.
Right, but you're not
what,
couching that
but
with.
why? Why?
Yeah.
The question is that's how we're sharing information, but what it hasn't answered is what is the purpose of those meetings? Right? And if it's to share information, you have to be cognizant of what the next step is. And so I think what the planning commission could benefit from, Linda, if it's possible, I'm sure that as you said, this is just sort of their bread and butter and what they always do. If we could get a statement of what are the intended goals of that interaction, like what are they planning to accomplish and what are they planning to get from it? That will really help us understand the intention better, because right now it just sounds like, holy cow, it could explode in a variety of different ways, because we don't really know why they're doing it, and nor have we seen anything that sort of says what the messaging is intended to do. And as the planning commission that has a responsibility, and maybe it's just self-given responsibility on on this project at this point, we need to be able to see how there could be unintended consequences that are setbacks.
Well, I think we did see that, right? Like the whole thing with the commercial district was, we thought that we heard all the feedback and we came up with this amazing plan. And it was just a draft of what was possible with made up pathways. And the made up pathways are one of the things that submarine the entire project, because it was just a possible scenario.
Right.
It was just a pie in the sky kid with a crayon. And it completely submarined us, and people felt really not heard and violated.
How could you publish these maps?
How could you publish these maps?
That is our land, yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
on my
so-
land, yes. How could you take this from me without even asking me or telling me it was possible? And we were like, no, no, no. It was just like, again, kid with a crayon, like drawing a line between here and there of where a path might go. There was no intention to make that permanent. It was just a conceptual drawing. No, you're
Yeah.
I mean, it was also, how dare you do this
How-
adjacent to my
Yes,
property?
yeah.
Forget the road.
Mhm.
That's my view you're taking away. And
Yeah. Or my
once burned,
safety.
twice shy.
You're taking my safety away by trafficking adjacent to my property.
Well, I will send you all a link to I have a couple other presentations that have been done in other communities as examples for this phase of the report. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get invited to the meetings too.
Participate? Or have a role?
I'm not sure. John and I have it as a topic to talk about. I think it would be better if it was John and or the select board who were the ones, introducing the topic and delivering the messaging around it.
Well, I would like to be a part of that, if just as a Jericho resident, as opposed to a planning commission member, or as a planning commission member. And I think all of us as planning commission members should participate in this.
Well, are they gonna do general announcements, or is it specific
Right.
just to the people who live in those areas?
Right.
There'll be general announcements like on
From Porch
Front
Forum?
Porch Forum and.
Saying
on
that
the
it's happening,
website,
but
And then there'll be direct mailings to all the property owners that receive the surveys that are
Yeah,
folks that live
Yeah.
in the service.
okay.
But again, is there any messaging behind it saying like the town plan says this is one of our goals? We've contracted with a consultant and with the engineering to do this. Here's how long we've been working on it. Here is why it's important. Here is when it's available for you to participate. If you're directly impacted, you may receive a notice in the mail. If you're not, you're still welcome to participate, instead of just like a general notice, this is happening with no context.
Yeah, no, there'll be context.
And
Okay.
will the landowners also be informed that if they are selected, or if their property is right, they will have options for compensation? If you're gonna put a septic
Yeah,
leach field on somebody's property, they're gonna want something,
The siting.
the siting itself, yeah.
All those folks have already been reached out to.
Mhm.
So we've had those conversations.
And are most of them accepting?
Well, we
Or,
didn't get that far with the conversation. It's initially like, hey, your property has been identified in this report as a potential site. This report will be public information. How do you feel about that?
And does this report
So-
include money? Like potential?
Like estimated cost?
Cost estimates yes.
So that's a red flag, because
right.
it's gonna be a lot of zeros.
Mhm.
And
But does it explain that the town isn't necessarily on the hook for 100% of those costs?
Or how.
It's a very,
public private
it's, you
financing
guys are
works.
getting way too far down the road.
No.
This is a very.
No, but that,
No, you're talking, yeah, we're
average
talking about
Joe,
having a meeting in like a month.
It's the first thing people are gonna think is, how much is it gonna cost? How much is it gonna cost me?
And if you don't tell
You
them,
could
they're
address
gonna
that.
fill in the blank.
right?
They're gonna say, well,
We don't know
Westford
the
voted
answers
it
to all of
down.
these Questions yet.
But we
We
do,
can give, we can give.
Right.
But we can tell them that on average, the
Yeah,
town will pay no more than 10%, 15% of whatever the total cost is. Because of grant money and everything.
Can I ask a question?
Get it
At
specific.
this point.
Time. Quick question, Linda, is it required? Do we have to, do they have to do these things? And do they have to do it on a certain timetable? The reason I ask is that it's 9 o'clock. We are starting to go down rabbit holes because we haven't seen everything that's necessary. And I'm wondering, like, I know there's anxiousness to get this report done. Does the report require this step of meeting with these 3 or 4 select locations or not? Is there like, who's requiring it?
Yes, it is required for the contract for the funding.
Because we wrote it into the contract for the funding.
Well, it's a boilerplate contract from the state. It's not something that Jericho wrote in.
Okay,
It's-
yeah, no, that's helpful. I don't, I'm just trying to get clear about like what must be done versus what's optional, right? And who gets to make what decision. That's all I'm trying to figure out. So if
Well-
this is a requirement, the question is, what does it have to include? And is there a way for us as the planning commission to see what's there so that we have the opportunity to be as helpful as possible in thinking further ahead, recognizing that ultimately we do need a communications plan that is incredibly thoughtful for this kind of change and commitment that we're going to be asking for.
And this is one of our top priorities.
all right, so I think you get where we're coming from, and we have to
Understood.
trust you to either like,
Okay.
we're worrying in unnecessarily, or that you can influence the way the meetings unfold. And if any of us see and can participate, we would like to do that. If they want us to help, if they want us to set the stage, if they want you to set the stage, if they feel like they know the town plan cold, they can explain it. If they say town plan irrelevant to this meeting, whatever, I think we have to trust that you're gonna take it forward.
I personally would like to be involved in it.
Well,
Keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah. okay. All right, thank you, Heidi. Do you have any more update?
I do not. That was the last one.
Best for last.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. You were just receiving a lot of energy, and we know it's not you and it's not your report and it's
No.
not your
this is a
project per
classic
se.
comma response.
Yes, it's just like,
I'm on it.
right, it's just sort of like there's the Humpty Dumpty egg and we just gave it to somebody else and we're like, it's like when you leave your newborn baby for the first time and you're like, oh my God.
Especially because the last Humpty Dumpty egg fell off the wall.
And it
Right.
broke into a lot of,
Right. And the
And it-
track record so far is
Yeah.
not great.
yeah.
And
Well, we got the town plan approved very easily.
no, I meant the track record of other meetings,
Yeah.
not going
And-
and
Right.
not going off the
Right.
rails,
Right.
we have a past project with no decision where there was a lot of,
Yeah.
it almost seems like whenever we say like, okay, the ball is now yours, is when things kind of go awry.
Maybe we should just take over.
No, we
Stage of coup
shouldn't
d'etat.
do that. Okay, so you're all set for planners report. Okay. Does anybody have any updates?
So
Next item is planning commission updates. Go.
liaison updates.
Yeah, liaison updates.
So the Affordable Housing Committee is moving forward with additional plans for what we're going to do for the rest of this year. One of the big elements is looking at HOAs
Oh, yay.
to see if we can do something around recommendations to the DRB or somebody that HOAs not prohibit accessory dwelling units, which many of them do as boilerplate. I recognize that has a lot of legal problems and everything else. but it is an impediment to increasing density in various areas. We are also planning on a brand new ADU hop to go along with the February
go.
or the September art hop, where you can go and see ADUs. So and I'm tasked with coordinating that. So if any of you know people who have an ADU who would be interested in sharing it with people as they go and look at art in the store next door or the studio next door, we can show them what an ADU
Kind of
looks
like the
like.
garden tour.
Kind of like the garden tour.
You mean open studio? That's it, that
Yeah.
happens in Jericho. Got it.
Yeah,
Oh,
garden
cool.
tour, open studio,
Open studio, open ADU.
open
Nice.
ADU, yeah.
When is it? Gotta get those tenants to.
We're thinking around the weekend of the open studio, but I suppose we could, it's probably too early for the garden. That's too soon from now for the garden tour, but open studio is in Memorial Day.
May. Yeah,
That's May.
Right.
I thought it was Memorial Day.
Memorial Day's May.
You're talking about labor, you're
Late-
thinking of
I'm-
Labor Day.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of,
but I thought open studio was May.
It
It
is.
is.
isn't there one in the fall?
Garden is
No.
later.
What's the one we have in the fall?
There was one in the fall.
Yeah.
Maybe
There
there's,
is one
maybe
in
there's
the-
also
one in the
twice a
fall.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way,
fall-
it's very exciting.
Yes, okay, ADU hop.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we're working on.
Okay. Anybody else have an update?
You don't.
The Conservation Commission is, grant hire interns to do the tree survey this summer, so we're working on that application. Just a follow-up to Linda's talk about the multimodal path, the bike head, connectivity committee is having a special meeting on Tuesday to come up with their own recommendations that they're gonna present to the select board as we did, and they have our copy. So they know what we've said, and Susan and I have spoken with them.
Is that the path from
The one that.
elementary school up?
This wall to Packard, the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just, but not extending on all the way down to,
well,
Or
we're
that,
looking at the same options that were reviewed at the meeting.
okay.
So yes, they're 1, 2, or 3, that whole thing.
Mhm.
They're not creating a new option. Well, I hope they're not really, because I mean,
No.
a good job.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're creating a new option.
Yeah, so that's it. And well, the food hub is really partnering now with Underhill quite a bit, which is good because it's strengthening, getting good new ideas and becoming a better overall committee.
I'll add on to Sabina's, the bike ped committee has a new chair. They elected Cody Phillips as their new chair, who seems very energetic, very organized, very ambitious, and he really understands that the town plan has really elevated the role of their group, and he seems like willing to rise to the occasion. And I'm gonna meet with him this week just to sort of orient him to town business and how that goes. So that should be good. Okay, any other liaison updates? Any other business?
Oh, I will just give a quick update, Susan. I mean, you all know it because you're residents, but obviously the MMU SD budget was delayed for voting. And so though you all should have gotten, I don't know if you can see the beautiful flyer that came in the mail that actually is super confusing in the effort to provide too much information all on one piece of paper. But they're really doing a diligent job trying to make sure that folks in the community really understand what's going on. And that I think we meet the next time of the budget, the MMU budget vote. So get out and vote, get educated. It's very important. April
Is that
2nd.
right?
April 2nd.
Yeah, so our next meeting is April 2nd. Okay, thank you, Heidi.
So I already got my absentee ballot in the mail. I got it yesterday and I put it in the box outside when I walked in today.
Put mine in yesterday.
So
Okay.
Vote yes.
vote.
All right, so that brings us to wrap up and planning for next meeting. So Linda already reminded us that April 2nd is going to be focused on the zoning. So if you haven't, or if you already have and want to do more, really digging into the existing village center zoning and coming with your notes and your questions and your ideas potentially, but we'll be mostly we'll be listening to David on the 2nd. And then the 16th is going to be what? Also related to the zoning.
It is also related to the zoning, where we will zoom in a little more detail. So the 2nd is gonna be high level, like here are the areas that we're looking at making changes to, but we may not get down into nitty-gritty detail. So the following meeting would be a more detailed conversation about some of the specific changes that David and I are going to be making as the recommendations.
And, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Will we get whatever David's gonna present, or David and you are gonna present on the 2nd? Will we get that on the Friday before so we can look at it ahead of time?
I can't guarantee that because I talked to David about it and he's gonna be out of town right up until I think the Thursday before. So he wasn't confident, he couldn't guarantee me with 100% certainty that he'd be able to get materials out on Friday before the meeting on the 2nd.
Even Monday would be good.
Yeah, so I did talk to
Yeah.
him about like, if you can get it on Monday, that'd be great, like if you can get it out.
Yeah.
I think they'd want to see it and he understood that, but I didn't want to postpone the meeting because he couldn't get the material.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So keep it on the schedule. So stay tuned. I'll see. I'll get them to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask if you and David think 7 to 9 will be sufficient time for both of those meetings, and will we have anything else on the agenda?
I don't have anything on the agenda now. I think it will be sufficient time. If you have a different opinion, maybe we can talk about it.
Well, maybe not the 2nd, but maybe the 16th. Seems, I don't know. I guess it depends. We'll know more, I guess, after the 2nd.
When are the wastewater meetings going to be held for?
I don't have the exact dates yet.
Will it be before or after the 16th?
After.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe we can learn more from you about those meetings
Mhm.
at our meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for planning for next meetings?
I just have one request that you don't hold any of those wastewater meetings during school vacation.
We're not.
Okay,
We were mindful of that.
Yeah,
awesome.
okay. Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Sabina and Heidi, I think you had a second bubbling up there, didn't you?
You bet. I was on my way. She beat me. Or she beat
Okay,
me to the first, so I'll take
Right.
2nd.
okay, all those in favor to adjourn?
Right.
Aye. Okay, thank you.